First off, before we even touch the absolute mountain of research we have on the desk today, I just really need to say a massive thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, to everyone who is still faithfully following this deep dive week after week, we really appreciate you being here.
We do. It's great to have you all along for the ride.
And, please remember to share, like, and subscribe. That is literally the absolute best way to ensure you always get the latest news updates the second we drop them.
Exactly. Don't miss out.
So, okay, I want you to imagine standing in a room full of billionaires, right? And they're all holding briefcases just stuffed with cash.
A fun room to be in.
Right. But they all staring at the exact same handful of incredibly valuable, incredibly rare assets. And the literal second one of those assets is taken off the table, the entire room just panics.
What chaos.
Strategies are shredded, and millions of dollars are suddenly fired in completely unexpected directions. I mean, welcome to the July 2026 transfer window.
It really is like that, yeah.
Today, we are taking our massive stack of sources, the blockbuster Premier League bids, the huge youth academy investments, the post-World Cup fallout, and we are looking for the hidden architecture underneath it all. Our mission today is to show you exactly how these clubs are, weaponizing their wealth and planning their futures.
And that is the perfect way to frame it, honestly, because in the football transfer market, literally nothing happens in isolation. It's a highly volatile, completely interconnected ecosystem.
Right.
Every transfer, every rejected bid, every contract extension, it acts as a domino. When one falls, it forces this chain reaction. So a club in Spain decides to lock down a player, and the immediate consequence is a club in England panicking, overpaying for a teenager, which then funds a massive deal in the Netherlands.
Well,
you really have to trace the money to understand the panic.
Well, so let's trace the biggest domino right out of the gate, because I think this perfectly sets up the chaos we're talking about.
Let's do it.
Our sources confirm that Aurelien Tchouameni, who has been heavily targeted by Manchester United, has officially signed a new contract with Real Madrid.
A massive deal.
And this is not just a gentle short-term extension to bump his wages. He is locked in until June 2031. It feels like Real Madrid didn't just reject Manchester United. They built a fortress around the guy.
Oh, they absolutely did. And the timeline is the most critical piece of data there. I mean, June 2031.
Yeah, 5 years.
Exactly. When a club like Real Madrid issues a 5-year extension to a player who is already at the absolute peak of his market value, it's a deliberate act of market manipulation. They're doing two things at once. First, they're securing their own sporting project, right? Ensuring that midfield spine stays intact.
Right, covering their own bases.
But strategically, they are instantly shrinking the global pool of elite available talent. By taking Tchouameni completely off the board until 2031, they are sending a definitive, legally binding message to Manchester United and everyone else. Do not even bother routing a phone call to our offices.
It totally neutralizes the buyer's ambition. You can have all the money in the world, but if the contract runs until 2031, the asset simply does not exist for you anymore.
Goof. Gone.
Right. And this brings us to the immediate consequence of that door slamming shut. Because United didn't just take the loss, pack up, and save their money. They aggressively pivoted. We have confirmation that Manchester United agreed to sign young Brazilian Andrey Santos from Chelsea.
And, I mean, just look at the numbers attached to that pivot.
The numbers are absolutely staggering. They're paying a $48 million base fee, plus another $2 million in add-ons, and giving him a 5-year contract. So I have to present a theory here.
Go for it.
If you're Manchester United and your primary target, a proven world-class defensive midfielder, is suddenly untouchable, is dropping $50 million total on a young player from a direct rival, just a sign of structural panic.
It's definitely an aggressive recalibration.
Because to me, it feels like going to a dealership to buy a proven luxury sports car, finding out it's sold, and immediately throwing all that cash at an unproven, high-end prototype just so you don't go home empty-handed.
Your prototype analogy hits perfectly on the core risk here. Let's break down the mechanics of this $50 million total package. You are absolutely right that it stems from the scarcity created by Madrid.
Yeah.
When the market for finished, prime-age defensive midfielders dries up, clubs are forced to move down the age bracket. But when you do that, you're no longer paying for what a player is today. You are paying a massive premium for what you hope he becomes in, say, 3 years.
But why $48 million guaranteed to Chelsea? That is a massive injection of capital to a direct rival.
Because of the rival tax. Chelsea understands Manchester United's desperation perfectly. They know United just missed out on Tchouaméni, right?
Right, everyone knows it.
Exactly. They know United has a gaping hole in their midfield that they have to fill before the season even starts. So Chelsea has absolutely zero incentive to offer a discount. If you're going to strengthen a team you have to compete against for Champions League spots, you're going to extract the absolute maximum financial compensation possible.
You make them bleed for it.
Exactly. The $48 million base fee reflects Santos's potential, sure, but it heavily features a tax for solving a rival's immediate crisis.
And what about the 5-year contract for Santos? Is that standard procedure for a fee this high?
Yes. And it ties directly into the accounting side of the sport. We talk a lot about amortization in these deep dives.
We love amortization.
We do. It's crucial here. By spreading that $48 million base fee across a 5-year contract, Manchester United only records a hit of roughly $9.6 million per year on their books.
So it softens the blow.
It makes the massive initial outlay palatable for financial fair play regulations. Furthermore, if the prototype does develop into that luxury sports car we talked about, United has him legally bound for his prime developmental years.
Okay, so United reacted to a roadblock by aggressively buying potential from a rival. But looking at our notes, Arsenal's taking a completely different approach to their midfield targets. They aren't pivoting at all. They are applying relentless pressure.
They really are.
Arsenal's preparing a massive second bid of £65 million for Newcastle's Bruno Guimarães. And the source material highlights something really critical here. It specifically notes that the player is dreaming of joining Arsenal.
And that single word dreaming is arguably more powerful than the $65 million bid itself.
Yes. I wanted to ask you exactly about that. It feels like Arsenal is weaponizing the player's own desires to trap Newcastle into a corner. Like, how does an intangible emotional concept like a player's dream actually impact the hard math of a $65 million negotiation?
Because it violently shifts the leverage. I mean, in any transfer negotiation, the selling club, in this case Newcastle, wants to create an auction.
Get multiple bidders involved.
Precisely. If Arsenal bids $60 million, Newcastle wants to be able to call another massive club and say, hey, can you bid $65 million? That drives the price up. But when a player publicly, or even semi-publicly, through media leaks, makes it known that his singular dream is Arsenal, he actively destroys Newcastle's ability to create an auction.
Because no other club is going to bid for a player who explicitly wants to be somewhere else.
Exactly. The buyer pool instantly shrinks to an audience of one. Arsenal, and Arsenal knows this. By leaking the player's dream, Arsenal strips Newcastle of their negotiating power. Now Newcastle is left with a highly valuable asset who might become deeply unhappy and unmotivated if he's forced to stay.
Which is awful for a locker room.
A disillusioned player in the dressing room can be toxic to a team's entire season. So Arsenal's second bid of $65 million is carefully calculated. They are trying to find the exact financial threshold where Newcastle's ownership looks at the situation and decides that the $65 million influx is ultimately more valuable than keeping a disgruntled star.
It's just psychological warfare dictating the accounting. But, I mean, if Arsenal succeeds, Newcastle is going to have a massive hole in their midfield and a massive pile of cash. And looking at our next set of notes, it seems Newcastle is already anticipating that reality, which brings us directly into the incredible youth arms race currently sweeping the market.
And this is where the domino effect accelerates into hyperspeed. The money generated at the top of the pyramid is immediately flushed down to the grassroots and academy level.
Exactly, because Newcastle isn't waiting around. They are heavily investing in youth right now. Our sources show they are a single step away from signing Ajax youth player son Steur for a massive $25 million.
A huge number.
And on top of that, they've started preliminary talks with Freiburg for Swiss youth player Johan Manzambi. But wait, I have to push back on this $25 million figure for a moment. If Newcastle is potentially losing a proven elite Premier League star in Guimarães, dropping $25 million on an Ajax youth player in Steur doesn't just sound like inflation. It sounds like institutional gambling.
It is the ultimate high-stakes gamble. But, you have to understand the specific market mechanics driving it. A $25 million fee for a player who has not yet proven himself consistently across multiple seasons of top-tier professional football is staggering.
Yeah, it's wild.
But clubs like Newcastle are operating on a very specific economic projection. They look at the current market, where established superstars are moving for upwards of $100 million or more, They've realized that if they wait for Steur to play 3 phenomenal seasons at Ajax, score 20 goals a season, and prove he is world-class, he will be completely financially out of reach.
Oh, wow. So the $25 million is essentially a down payment to avoid a future ransom.
Precisely. They are paying an astronomical premium on potential today to avoid paying a prohibitive fee for proven reality tomorrow. And there's also the Ajax tax factored into that $25 million.
The Ajax tax?
Yeah. Ajax has one of the most statistically successful youth academies in the history of the sport. When Newcastle buys from Ajax, they aren't just buying the individual player's talent, they are buying the institutional pedigree. They are paying for the statistical probability that an Ajax-trained player possesses the tactical intelligence to actually survive in the Premier League.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
They're buying the education as much as the player. And Newcastle isn't the only one making these massive youth bets. Lille is executing a very similar strategy.
Right.
They are signing NEC youth talent Bazar Onal for $12.5 million plus $2 million in add-ons, with the medical happening today. So you're looking at a $14.5 million total package for another youth prospect.
It perfectly illustrates the baseline inflation for potential. 10 or 15 years ago, a $14.5 million package secured you a starting caliber prime age international. Today, it secures you the opportunity to develop a teenager from NEC. The scouting networks across Europe are so deeply integrated and so heavily reliant on advanced data analytics that the concept of a hidden gem in a European league is practically dead.
Wow, really?
Yeah. If Bazar Onal has elite underlying metrics at NEC, every single sporting director in Europe knows about him. That instant global awareness creates immediate bidding wars for potential, which naturally drives the baseline price for a teenager well past the 10 million mark.
It's fascinating how data has actually made it more expensive to find talent. But the sheer geographical spread of this scouting is what truly blows my mind here.
Oh, it's everywhere.
Right, you have Newcastle hunting in the Netherlands and Germany. You have Deportivo La Coruña, who have reached a principal agreement to sign Bayern Munich youth player Jonathan Asp Jensen. So they are targeting the elite German infrastructure. But then you look at what Sevilla just did, and it is a completely different paradigm.
The Sevilla acquisition is the absolute perfect contrast to the $25 million Ajax deal.
It really is. Sevilla just signed an 18-year-old Ghanaian player, Emmanuel Brokwa, and they didn't pluck him from a massive, polished European academy. They found him at a local club in Ghana called Adabraka Elders, and they instantly locked him down on a contract until June 2029. We are talking about casting a scouting net that stretches from the high-tech, multi-million euro facilities of Bayern Munich all the way to grassroots local football in Ghana.
And this highlights the dual strategies within the youth arms race. On one side, you have Newcastle and Deportivo paying the premium to acquire players who are already heavily integrated into the European tactical pipeline at Ajax or Bayern. They are minimizing adaptation risk but maximizing the financial cost.
Right.
Sevilla, on the other hand, is executing a pure raw scouting strategy. By identifying a Brokwa directly at Adabraka Elders, they completely bypass the European Academy tax.
They just skipped the middleman entirely.
Exactly. If Sevilla had waited for a Belgian or Portuguese club to discover a Brokwa, sign him, and develop him for 2 years, Sevilla would eventually have to pay $15 million or $20 million for him. By going directly to the source in Ghana, the initial financial outlay is negligible by comparison.
There's a catch. Right?
Yeah, a big one. The adaptation risk is massive. You are taking an 18-year-old out of local Ghanaian football and dropping him into the intensely tactical, highly pressurized environment of La Liga. Sevilla is betting that their internal coaching and player welfare infrastructure can bridge that massive gap. If it works, the return on investment is astronomical. If it fails, well, the financial loss is minimal.
It's the ultimate low-floor, infinitely high-ceiling play. But, while these clubs are meticulously digging through academy data and scouting local leagues, other clubs are just watching the biggest television broadcast in the world and letting that dictate their millions. The recent 2026 World Cup has completely shaken up the market dynamics.
Oh, the World Cup is always the most volatile catalyst for transfer activity. It routinely throws years of careful scouting right out the window.
It really does. Let's circle back to Johan Manzambi for a second.
Yeah.
We mentioned Newcastle is in talks with Freiburg for him. Our sources explicitly note that Manzambi shone brightly for Switzerland at the World Cup. Now, I always find the World Cup shop window to be a fascinating psychological phenomenon.
It's a tricky one to navigate.
If you're a sporting director controlling a massive budget, how do you actually weigh a few incredible weeks of form at a summer tournament against, say, 3 years of underlying club data. Like, is a great 3-week run in a Swiss jersey really worth millions in a Premier League transfer fee?
It is the eternal debate inside every single recruitment department. From a purely statistical standpoint, the World Cup is a nightmare.
Really? What?
The sample size is incredibly small, sometimes just 3 games. The tactical setups are often disjointed because national teams don't train together all year. Players are exhausted from the club season, so relying purely on World Cup performances is statistically incredibly dangerous.
Right, that makes sense.
However, what the World Cup provides that club data cannot provide is the ultimate psychological pressure test.
A pressure test. Break that down for me.
So, if Johan Manzambi is playing for Freiburg in the Bundesliga, he's playing in a structured, familiar environment. But when he puts on the Switzerland shirt at a World Cup, with tens of millions of people watching, carrying the emotional weight of his nation, and he is playing against the absolute elite players on the planet, if he shines in that specific crucible, it answers a massive question for a club like Newcastle.
Oh, I see.
It proves he possesses the elite psychological resilience and temperament required for the highest level. You are paying a premium for his verified ability to perform under crushing global pressure.
That reframes it completely. You aren't just buying the stats, you're buying the verified temperament. And we're seeing this tournament bump happen across all demographics. Look at the Cape Verde national team goalkeeper, Vizinha.
A great example.
Our sources note he had brilliant World Cup performances. Now, he has suddenly sparked free transfer interest from Brazilian clubs Avaí and Atletico Goianiense.
This is a perfect example of leveraging tournament momentum at a totally different stage of a career. Manzambi is using his World Cup shine to vault into the elite European financial brackets. Vizinha, on the other hand, is utilizing his heroics for Cape Verde to secure a lucrative cross-continental move to South America.
It's brilliant for him.
For Avaí and Atletico Goianiense, targeting him on a free transfer is exceptionally shrewd. Goalkeepers often age incredibly well, and by acquiring him on a free, they aren't risking a transfer fee on tournament hype. They are simply absorbing a player who is currently riding a massive wave of confidence and global recognition.
The World Cup can literally write the final lucrative chapter of a career. But of course, the tournament is a double-edged sword, right? It launches careers, but it also mercilessly ends them. The managerial landscape right now is just a bloodbath of post-World Cup fallout.
The life cycle of an international manager is arguably the most brutal in all of sports.
Just look at the reality here. Zlatko Dalic has officially left his role as Croatia's head coach. The sole reason provided. He failed to advance further in the 2026 World Cup. Just like that, an entire era ends.
It's ruthless.
And over in North America, Javier Aguirre is reportedly leaving the Mexico national team to be replaced by the legendary former Barcelona player Rafa Marquez. These are massive seismic shifts in national footballing infrastructure.
And they represent 2 very different reactions to tournament failure. With Dalic and Croatia, it is the harsh binary reality of major tournaments. International football does not afford managers the luxury of a transfer window to fix a broken squad.
Right, you can't just buy a solution.
Exactly. You cannot buy a new striker in January if you are a national team. Therefore, the manager is the only disposable variable. If the team fails to meet national expectations, the manager must be sacrificed to reset the cycle. Dalic walking away is just the natural conclusion to a project that hit its ceiling.
You either win the knockout game or you're clearing your desk.
Literally. But Mexico's strategy with replacing Aguirre is fascinating because it's not just a tactical shift, it is a profound emotional and cultural pivot.
Right. Moving from Aguirre to Rafa Marquez feels like a massive vibe shift.
Vibe shift is actually the perfect analytical term for it. Javier Aguirre is a deeply experienced, pragmatic veteran manager. Rafa Marquez does not possess a fraction of Aguirre's managerial resume. However, Rafa Marquez is a Mexican footballing deity.
He's a legend.
By bringing in a legendary former player to lead the national team, the Federation is attempting to instantly galvanize a frustrated fan base and command absolute unquestioned respect inside the dressing room. They are replacing pragmatic experience with sheer, unadulterated aura. They're betting that Marquez's legendary status will inspire a level of performance that Aguirre's tactics simply could not.
It's the ultimate psychological play. But it also just highlights how chaotic the managerial ecosystem is.
Yeah.
You have Darlik falling on his sword, Marquez returning as the national hero, and you have Walter Mazzarri, the former Napoli coach, who has literally just arrived in Greece to manage Iraklis Thessaloniki. I mean, the trajectory of a football manager is wild. You can be managing in the Champions League in Italy one year, and suddenly you're starting a brand new high-stakes adventure in the Greek league.
Managers are the ultimate nomads of the sport. For a club like Iraklis Thessaloniki, acquiring a manager with Mazzari's Serie A pedigree is a massive statement of ambition. They are hoping his rigorous Italian tactical education can elevate their entire domestic project. It shows how managerial knowledge trickles down through different European leagues.
It's an unpredictable carousel, for sure. But, while the managers are packing their bags and learning new languages, the players who are already established are cementing their long-term futures. And this is where we see the real heavy lifting of the transfer window, the deals that lock down a club's trajectory for the next half-decade.
We are transitioning from the bets on potential to the acquisition of absolute, proven prime years.
Exactly. Let's look at the market heavyweights right now. Atletico Madrid has officially signed Lee Kang In from TSG for a $40 million total package on a 5-year contract. Simultaneously, AC Milan has successfully signed Lazio defender Mario Gila for $30 million, also on a 5-year contract. These aren't $14 million youth bets, and they aren't free transfers for aging veterans. This is massive capital deployment.
What really stands out to you when you look at the architecture of those two specific deals?
Honestly, it's the mutual commitment of the 5-year contract paired with those specific price tags. Atletico dropping $40 million on Lee Kang in Milan, spending $30 million on Gila. They are buying the absolute peak physical and technical years of these players' lives. They expect them to start immediately.
And that is the cornerstone of modern squad building. When a club invests between $30 million and $40 million, they are not buying a project. They are buying an immediate foundational pillar for their starting 11. And the 5-year contract is the essential financial mechanism that makes it possible. We touched on amortization earlier, but it is vital here too.
Right, stretching the cost out.
Atletico Madrid is not taking a $40 million hit on their balance sheet this year. They are recording an $8 million expense annually for the next 5 years. This allows them to stay compliant with European financial regulations while simultaneously hoarding elite talent.
It's basically a massive high-stakes installment plan.
Exactly. But beyond the accounting, a 5-year contract secures the asset. If Lee Kang In thrives under Diego Simeone and becomes one of the premier attacking talents in La Liga over the next 2 years, Atletico holds absolute power. If another club comes knocking, Atletico can point to a contract that runs until 2031 and demand $100 million. They have locked down his prime and secured their investment.
You say they hold absolute power because of the contract, but I want to propose a scenario that completely upends that idea. Because we have a situation in our notes that proves a contract doesn't always guarantee leverage. The Dortmund situation with Karim Adeyemi is a masterclass in modern player power.
The audience of one scenario.
It is a phenomenal standoff. Our sources state that Dortmund striker Karim Adeyemi only wants Barcelona. He has made his stance completely clear, but his current contract with Dortmund runs until June 2027. So on paper, Dortmund holds the registration. They theoretically hold all the legal cards.
Theoretically.
But Adeyemi is holding all the motivation. If a player explicitly states he only wants one specific destination, how does that actually play out in the boardroom? Who wins that fight?
It is one of the most complex dynamics in football business, and it completely subverts the traditional understanding of a contract. You are right, legally, Dortmund holds the cards, but financially, Adeyemi's public stance has detonated his own market value.
How so? Because he's a highly talented striker, shouldn't he command a massive fee regardless?
Not if he refuses to go anywhere else. Think about it from the perspective of a third-party buyer. If you are Chelsea and you have $60 million to spend on a striker, you are not going to bid on Karim Adeyemi.
Oh, because he wouldn't sign with them anyway.
Because you know his heart is set on Barcelona. You are not going to invest massive capital into a player who views your club as a disappointing secondary option. So, by stating his preference, Adeyemi instantly eliminates every other potential buyer from the market.
He effectively creates a monopoly for Barcelona.
Exactly. The market shrinks to a single bidder, and Barcelona's executives are incredibly smart. They know Dortmund cannot create a bidding war. They know no English clubs are coming in to drive the price up. Therefore, Barcelona has zero incentive to offer a premium fee. They can aggressively lowball Dortmund.
That puts Dortmund in a terrible spot.
Right. So despite holding a contract until 2027, Dortmund is trapped. If they refuse Barcelona's low offer and force Adeyemi to stay, they are keeping a deeply unmotivated player whose financial value will only decrease as his contract ticks closer to expiration. Adeyemi has effectively weaponized his own preference to neutralize Dortmund's legal leverage.
It is incredible how tens of millions of euros in asset value can just evaporate simply because a player states a geographical preference. It's pure leverage manipulation. Now, contrast these tense multi-million euro standoffs with what Crystal Palace has just quietly executed.
The Mingueza acquisition.
Yes. While Dortmund and Barcelona are locked in a high-stakes staring contest, Crystal Palace just casually snagged defender Oscar Mingueza on a free transfer from Celta Vigo. No transfer fee, zero drama. Just the cost of his wages. In a market where we just saw a teenager go for 25 million. How crucial is a move like this?
In a hyperinflated market, finding a prime-age starting caliber defender on a free transfer is the equivalent of striking oil in your backyard.
Wow, that good.
Absolutely. Oscar Mingueza has extensive La Liga pedigree, he has elite tactical flexibility, and Palace acquired him without touching their actual transfer budget. This is the definition of shrewd squad building. By securing their defensive depth for free, Palace's sporting director can now take the 20 million they would have spent on a defender and reallocate it entirely toward acquiring an elite game-changing forward. It balances the books and maximizes their offensive purchasing power.
It's a foundational move that enables the blockbuster moves later. And speaking of minimizing risk and maximizing certainty, we are seeing a massive reliance on the loan-to-permanent pathway in this window.
It is becoming the preferred method for clubs outside the absolute financial elite to build their squads.
The numbers back that up completely. We have two major permanent signings here that follow that exact model. Everton has permanently signed Tyreek George from Chelsea for 18 million plus 6 million add-ons. And Paris FC has permanently secured Diego Coppola from Brighton for 18 million plus 2 million in add-ons. You are looking at massive total packages, potentially 24 million and 20 million, to buy players who were already playing in their stadiums last season.
And that is exactly why they are willing to pay those massive sums. They are paying a premium for absolute certainty. The biggest variable in any transfer is adaptation. Will the player adapt to the league? Will they adapt to the manager's tactics? Will they settle into a new city?
Right, there's so many unknowns.
And those unknowns ruin multi-million euro transfers every single year. But when Everton commits 24 million to Tyreek George or Paris FC commits 20 million to Coppola, that adaptation risk is zero.
Because they've already test-driven the car for a year.
Precisely. They know exactly how the player fits the dressing room culture. They have hard data on how they perform in their specific tactical system. It is a massive financial commitment, but it is a commitment made with unparalleled confidence. They aren't hoping the transfer works out. They already know it does.
It removes the gamble entirely. Okay, we have covered the massive prime age deals, the shrewd free transfers, and the safe permanent loans. But to truly grasp the sheer chaotic width of this July 2026 window, we have to examine the absolute extremes of the footballing financial spectrum. And I mean the absolute polar opposites.
The disparity is almost difficult to comprehend when you place these transactions next to each other.
It really breaks your brain a little bit. Let me read these two pieces of transfer news to you back to back. We have Hamza Bellari, who has left Valencia to join Castellon on a contract until June 2029. The transfer fee for this multi-year professional contract, a grand total of 150,000 euro.
A completely negligible sum in the context of global football finance.
It's a fraction of a rounding error for a Champions League club. But in the exact same sport, during the exact same week, we have Al Ahly from Saudi Arabia offering 50 million euro to Sporting for Portuguese national Francisco Trincao. You have a professional player moving for 150,000 euro, and simultaneously a club casually throwing 50 million across the continent for a single player. What does that 50 million bid actually tell us about the current state of the Saudi Pro League? Because from a casual perspective, it just looks like they are still throwing endless bags of cash at whoever will take it.
It might look like a scattergun approach from the outside, sure, but if you analyze the specific mechanics of the Trincao bid, it actually reveals a massive evolution in Saudi Arabia's market strategy.
How so? A 50 million bid seems pretty standard for their massive wealth.
It's not the amount, it's the specific target and the context. A few years ago, the initial wave of Saudi investment was entirely focused on global brand acquisition. They were buying aging superstars, Ballon d'Or winners past their prime, players whose names would generate instant global headlines.
Right, the big billboard signings.
Exactly. But look at our source notes for this deal. Al Ahly is offering $50 million for Trincao, specifically to replace Riyad Mahrez, whose contract has ended.
Ah, so there is a direct succession plan.
Yes, they are losing a highly specific tactical profile in Mahrez. So instead of just pivoting and buying a famous aging center forward to replace the star power, they are going into the European market to execute a one-to-one tactical replacement. They identified Trincao, a prime-age Portuguese international, as the optimal successor to that exact role in their squad.
Wow.
This proves that the Saudi Pro League has matured. They are no longer just building marketing campaigns, they are utilizing their immense wealth to strategically build cohesive, balanced, highly competitive football squads. It is a terrifying prospect for European clubs because the Saudi wealth is now being deployed with surgical precision.
That is a phenomenal insight. They have moved from buying billboards to actually building the machine. Now let's look at one final transfer that involves massive wealth, but in a completely different context. We have Nathan Ake leaving the absolute juggernaut that is Manchester City. He's making a permanent move to Fenerbahçe in Turkey. The fee. Just £7 million plus $1.5 million in add-ons. I have to ask, why is a player departing the absolute pinnacle of English football from a team with endless resources move for a relatively modest £7 million base fee?
This specific transfer is a masterclass in understanding the intersection of player age, contract length, wage structures, and specific league dynamics. Nathan Ake has been an incredibly reliable servant to Manchester City.
Very reliable.
But as a player, ages into his 30s, his book value naturally depreciates, even if his on-pitch intelligence remains elite. Manchester City is a hyper-efficient organization. They are not trying to squeeze a massive profit out of a departing veteran. Their primary goal in this transaction is to facilitate a respectful exit while getting his massive Premier League wages off their accounting books. The £7 million fee is secondary to the wage relief.
So City cleans up their wage bill. But what is the specific draw for Fenerbahçe?
Oh, for Fenerbahçe, this deal is an absolute coup. The Turkish Super League is an incredibly passionate, highly pressurized, and often chaotic environment. In that specific league, veteran defensive stability, a player who has seen everything and won everything, is prized above almost anything else.
They need an anchor.
Exactly. Bringing in a player with Ake's elite tactical education instantly elevates the composure of their entire defensive line. The £7 million fee is modest for a club of City stature, but for Fenerbahçe, it represents a highly targeted, highly significant investment in foundational stability. And $1.5 million in add-ons is a brilliant piece of structuring.
How does that help?
It likely sweetens the deal for City if Ake helps Fenerbahçe secure domestic titles or lucrative European qualification, ensuring both clubs are invested in his success.
It perfectly aligns the incentives for everyone involved. The player gets a new challenge, City clears the wages, and Fenerbahçe gets an elite defensive anchor. Well, we have covered an absolutely immense amount of ground today.
We really have.
We've traveled from the boardroom manipulation in Madrid to the sheer risk of 25 million youth bets in the Netherlands. We've explored grassroots scouting in Ghana, the brutal reality of international management post-World Cup, the intricate leverage of player power, and the evolving surgical wealth of the Saudi League.
If we synthesize the sheer volume of data we've analyzed today, I think this July 2026 window is being driven by three distinct, highly disruptive forces.
Okay, lay them out for us.
First, you have the hyperinflation of potential. Clubs are so terrified of future 100 million price tags that they are willingly hoarding unproven teenagers for massive, unprecedented fees. Second, you are seeing the zenith of player power, where individuals are utilizing their stated preferences and dream club statuses to actively depreciate their own value, essentially rendering long-term contracts irrelevant.
That Adeyemi situation, right?
Exactly. And finally, you have the strategic maturation of the Saudi League, moving away from simple headline grabbing and transitioning towards surgically replacing aging stars with prime-age elite European talent.
It is a totally transformed, incredibly volatile landscape. And it leaves me with one final thought, something I really want you, the listener, to mull over as you watch the rest of this window unfold in the coming weeks. We are seeing major clubs willingly and aggressively spend $25 million on youth players who have not fully proven themselves on a sustained professional stage. Meanwhile, at the exact same time, prime-age veterans, international tournament-tested goalkeepers, and solid La Liga defenders are moving for absolute fractions of that cost, or even completely free. Are we approaching a definitive breaking point in the sport where a player's potential, the mere abstract idea of what they could eventually become, is actually valued significantly higher than their proven reality?
It's a huge question.
It is a fascinating shift in how the sport views value, and it's something to keep a close eye on. Thank you truly for spending your time with us and joining us on this deep dive into the underlying mechanics of the transfer market. We deeply appreciate you being here. Thank you, Jeff.